Jonathan Berkey here has a book called The Formation of Islam, meaning the Islamic empires, and there's a chapter called The Non-Muslims of Early Islam. And the general concept here is that Christians and Jewish people who were under the other empires, Roman Syria or Roman Egypt, or Sasanian Iran and Sasanian Iraq, that they now became part of the Islamic empires. And there is a historian today at Columbia University named Wa'il Hallaq, and he argues that this concept of dhimma, what it says here on page 91, they came to be known as dhimmi communities, people who were under a pact of protection, dhimma, ahl al-dhimma. He argues, Wa'il Hallaq, modern historian, not the author of this chapter, he argues that this ahl al-dhimma concept was a form of like medieval or ancient citizenship, where many like European kingdoms were just one religion, but the Islamic empires were multiple people. There were people from multiple religious backgrounds, and they signed this kind of like a non-aggression treaty, and they are known as the Ahl al-Dhimma. This changes significantly when you get to the past few centuries, where there's a reformation of citizenship laws, and everyone is known as a citizen in a modern nation. Back then, you were the subject of a king. And so there would be, in places like Italy, sometimes the kings were known as dukes. So if you look at the 1600s in Italy, the Duchy of Tuscany, at some point in the 1600s, they also had more of a multi-religious kingdom. That's 1,000 years after the Islamic empires had multi-religious states. And the Duchy of Tuscany in northwest Italy also had kind of like a similar arrangement where non-Roman Catholics, including Greek Orthodox and Jewish people, they had some sort of variety of subjecthood or citizenship with a similar kind of arrangement. All right, moving along here. So the reading talks about how basically these communities all became part of the Islamic empires, and then they had a certain degree of independence in the management of their religious and community affairs. It does mention this Nestorian church. This is basically what is also called the Church of the East. This is a church under the rule of the Sasanians, and in the Islamic empires in the 700s, they moved their center of their church to Baghdad. They are known here as the Nestorian Church, but they're also called the Church of the East. We talked about this figure named Timothy, who knew the patriarch of the church, who knew the Khalifa in Baghdad personally and was connected with this translation movement of works from Greek into Arabic. And today, the two churches that are the descendants of this church are the Chaldean Church of Iraq, and then there's the Assyrian Church, al-Kanisa al-Ashuriya. And they use Aramaic, al-Lugha al-Aramiya, for some of their Christian services, but they are Arabic speakers. So the reading gets into some of these interesting details. And it also mentions here that Muslims were interested in the early centuries of Islam. They were interested in comparing what the Quran has to say about different prophets with what Christians and Jewish people had to say about different prophets. And Muslims would sometimes record these discussions and analysis in books. So pretty interesting. And it also talks about how there was another major religion, the Zoroastrian religion of Iran, of the Sasanian Empire. The rulers were Zoroastrian, but a lot of Sasanian Iraq in the 500s and 600s was Christian under Sasanian rule, but the rulers followed Zoroastrianism. It's an ancient religion which is still practiced today by a small group of people in part of Iran and India. And they much of that population became Muslim over time, and they appear to have converted to Islam much faster than Christians. And some of the people wonder whether Zoroastrians converted to Islam in larger numbers than Christians, or faster than Christians, because there may have been a certain type of social hierarchy in Zoroastrianism where something resembling aspects of a kind of caste system, if you look up caste system. So interesting. So maybe some of the wider population of non-priests, for one reason or another, found Islam appealing. Conceptions of egalitarianism. All right, very interesting.